I'd like to welcome you to the Manhattan Beach Chamber of Commerce Candidates Forum for the MBUSD, what are you guys, Board of Trustees. In a moment, I'm going to go through the ground rules. I'm David Archer. I'm the president and CEO of the Manhattan Beach Chamber of Commerce, and I thank you all for being here. I think we have an online presence of about 1 million viewers, so no pressure. So our ground rules for tonight are, and I'll read them for you. No campaign banners, signs, literature, handouts, or other campaign paraphernalia will be allowed in the forum hall. You have some tables out there where you can have your items for folks to take. The audience will be asked to refrain from applauding or in other ways demonstrating support or non-support for a candidate. Candidate statements, answers should focus on personal qualifications and positions. Personal attacks, innuendos, and disparaging remarks regarding other candidates are not acceptable. There will be no opening statements. The first question will be given to a randomly drawn candidate. I think you'll enjoy that part at the beginning of the forum and rotate to the other candidates thereafter. Candidates will be asked the same question and have the same time to answer. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to the question, and there will be no rebuttal. Time limits on responses will be strictly enforced. A timekeeper will hold, well, they won't do that. I'm doing it from here. So I'll give you a 10-second warning and then a stop. You'll hear my alarm, and then if you continue to go, then I'll talk over you. And I don't know if you saw the post on the news site, but I'm a black belt, so I'll take you out. Just kidding. Not on the black belt, though. Let's see. The moderator will have the responsibility of enforcing time limits. The moderator will also have the authority to interrupt the proceedings, to enforce the ground rules and format agreed to by all candidates. The moderator may restate the question and may ask follow-up questions. Candidates will not interrupt each other. Candidates should refrain from personal attacks or charges. Answers should remain focused on relevant policy topics. The candidate's closing statement should be significantly related to the matters discussed previously. Like I said before, you'll have 90 seconds for your closing statement. By attending the Manhattan Beach Chamber of Commerce Candidate Forum, the candidates agree to these guidelines, and the Manhattan Beach Chamber of Commerce reserves the right to amend these rules at any time, including the candidates forum. I don't know if you watched the council ones, but we had a shake-up. We did 30-second questions too, so that may happen. Let's see. All right. Just so everybody knows, I developed these questions with the assistance of my board. The chamber has resources that we can turn to for things such as this, and we modified them to coincide with Manhattan Beach. I'm going to let the candidates introduce themselves. First name and last name only. No grandstanding. Here we go.
Good evening, I'm Cristy Barnes.
Hi everyone, I'm Jen Fenton.
Good evening, I'm Tina Shivpuri.
I'm John Uriostegui, or Johnny U.
Hello, I am Wysh Weinstein.
Hi, I'm Mike Welsh.
Thank you all. Now the fun part of the evening. I'm going to pick who gets the first question. I have their pictures. Randomly, I'm going to look at Mike over here so I can't see who I'm picking.
If you pick me.
Pick Mike. No. It's Wysh.
Okay.
Wysh got to start last time.
I was unaware. We'll go Wysh, then we'll go to Mike, and then we'll start back here and go back there.
Okay.
Okay, you may not have heard that. Wysh gets the first question first. All right, Wysh. If elected, what are the first 3 changes you would like to make as a trustee?
Good evening. Thank you all for being here and thank you for hosting. The first thing and the most important thing will be bringing people together. I am happy that it seems to be a rising common theme among City Council that I heard on Tuesday night, and in a lot of the meet and greets that I've been at, it seems to be the primary issue for people, that we have to find a way to come together. I would also like to make our board workshops a little bit more informal and productive. A regular board meeting must abide by the Brown Act, and there can't be a dialogue between the people and the board members up on the dais. But in a board workshop, there's a lot more leeway, and as a former teacher, I feel like I could help facilitate that. And there would be small groups where there'd be a lot more opportunity for conversations, and there wouldn't be, up here, obviously we're a little bit anxious. We're not going to have the best ideas that just come to us, right? But if you take down the level of pressure and you put people in a more informal setting, you'll probably come up with some better ideas, and also some better questions. I would like to also have more professional development and have teacher choice and buy-in when it comes to this. When I taught in Roscommare Road Elementary, I was the professional development chair. As a former teacher, I can say
10 seconds.
that it's really hard to teach teachers because we make the worst audience. So you really need their buy-in with professional development.
Mike?
In this order, the first thing I will do is make sure that our parents are engaged in the process. They need to be welcomed and engaged, and they are a necessary part of their children's educational process. Nobody knows what motivates and facilitates their children's learning better than their parents. Next, we've got to ensure that our campuses are safe. We're just about to install cameras in the campuses, an effective system. We should have done this years ago. And third, the third thing was sorry. We need to ensure that our classrooms remain politically neutral. And we have the rules in place. It's by following Ed Code 6144. And this talks about how we deal with controversial topics and how teachers are not allowed to put their own personal opinions out there for the students. And
10 seconds.
So we need to enforce that. It's to teach our children it's to teach them how to think and not what to think. And it also develops critical thinking skills. Thank you.
Cristy?
Hi, I'm Cristy Barnes. The 3 things I would do, the very first thing I would do is I would research all the families that have left the district in the last few years and find out why, to see if there's anything we can do to win them back and what it would take to get them back into the district. The second thing that I would do is I would really work with the teachers. Teachers work well when they observe other teachers teaching. I really think it's important for our school and for the community, teachers observing other teachers in their real life curriculum. And the third thing I would do is really work with curriculum and the district in regards to possibly setting up an annual allowance or annual budget for the ongoing security needs for each campus. Their security needs are ever changing. Doors are being added, different things. And so I'd really work with them on what we can do in looking at this as an ongoing annual assessment on what security is our need for each school site. Thank you.
Jen?
Thank you to the chamber and everybody here. Being the incumbent, I have a little different perspective. The first thing I would like to combat is the divisiveness that's happening in our community. I hope throughout the campaign, people have felt heard, people have spoken, people have expressed their opinions, their approval and their disapproval of what's happening in the district. I'd love to come together, mend fences, and bring the focus back to students and academic excellence. The second thing I'd like to do is change MBUSD's reliance reliance on the volatile state funding. While we still have these one-time COVID relief and state budget allocations, I'd like to use that for professional development, for the purchase of textbooks, and for ongoing academic support for students who are not meeting the standards. I'd like to keep our reserves at 5% or higher, and I'd like to consider a local control funding measure so we are actually financially solvent and we are not reliant on our LCFF funding. The third thing I'd like to do is reimagine the district and come up with pathways. Costa offers these incredible pathways, and I'd love to see them offered at the middle school in particular. Our 5 elementary schools feed into one MBMS. That is a big change. If we could offer schools within schools, maybe they're based on STEM, maybe it's based on music, but it allows
10
students
seconds.
to find their connections and make their, find their connections and have more personalized learning.
Tina?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to start with number 1. Right in my wheelhouse, I have a mathematical background, and in my job for the last 20 years, I would love to take a deeper look at the data, perform some data analytics on the current numbers. We have the enrollment numbers. We can look at them when we see them from our cabinet, looking at it across year to year. But what I've already started to do is look at it by class. So we know, for example, I know from looking, class of 2026, which are 9th graders right now, their numbers have stayed pretty stable. And there's something unique about that. And there's going to be something unique about all the different years. And so we need to look at the data from multiple directions and make sure that we're attending to all the families and all the potential thoughts about staying or leaving in the district. Number 2, I want to make sure that every single stakeholder in our district is heard, seen, and valued. We know that there are situations, for the past 12 years, I've heard many parents, either give me a comment or a concern that they weren't heard or their student didn't feel valued. I know that my son, had some experiences like that in the middle school. And so we need to make sure that each of our students is seen, heard, and valued. And there's so many solutions to that. Every problem or every challenge, we cannot solve it with just one thing. There's going to be about 10 solutions.
10 seconds.
And number 3, I want to make sure that we are very thoughtful in executing on our stand-up pledge. We've had a stand-up pledge in our district and with the city from 2017. Let's make sure we act on that.
Time.
Thanks.
John?
I'm John Uriostegui. The first thing I like to do is focus on the financial budget. Oh, I said that last time too. Can you hear me now? Thanks. I like to focus on the financial budget. As we talked about before, we had 92% of the schools, K through 12, coming to school about 7 years ago. Now it's about 74%. The 1,000 students we've lost equals to about $12,000, or $12 million per year. And we've been focused on how to raise money. Well, the budget has 2 sides. It's a revenue stream and an expense stream. So with my 30 years of financial experience, the first thing I'm going to do is figure out A, if we need money. Obviously, we didn't need the measure A. B, where can we cut expenses? And C, how can we add revenues? The second thing I like to do is focus on education and including the parents. I think the survey that came out 2 days ago was the first time Manhattan Beach had ever been ranked below Redondo Beach and El Segundo. So the combination of losing students, losing money, and education going down is obviously concerning. I think a lot of that has to do with not only the classroom, but including the parents.
10 seconds.
Last thing I like to focus on is getting the families back. Again, like Cristy said, find out what the deal is. Can we accommodate? Can we make changes? Can we just communicate?
We're ready for question number 2. This one's going to start off with Mike this time. Mike, parents want a school district that sets their students up for success. How will you ensure a pathway to academic success for every student?
Good question. One of my heroes is One of my heroes is Dr. Thomas Sowell. And to quote Thomas Sowell, much of the social history of the Western world over the last 3 decades has been replacing what we know works with what sounds good. And right now, we're seeing some of that in our district. We know what works. We have this historical data. I'm a big data guy. I go as a businessman. You know, you have to go with what's tried and true, and our students are certainly no different than that. We know that focusing on the core subjects, you know, when they master math, English, history, science, and now the STEM classes, if they master those, their chances of success are really high. So we need to focus on those. Some of the choices we've made in the district, for example, and again, I don't question anybody's motive. Everybody on this panel is a hero as far as I'm concerned. They're all trying to help our children. But we've been implementing some programs, let's say around hate and bullying, okay? And these
10 seconds.
These sound really good, but we've had 9 incidences of hate crimes in our schools, so we need to do things that are effective. So.
Cristy.
Hi, I'm Cristy Barnes. And what I would do to set our students up for success is really to go back to the basics. And this means really focusing on the math and the reading and the writing. We have not had our test scores released. I'm not confident that they're going to be high only because we've known that they're low throughout because of COVID. So I think we really need to focus on those things to get them to the path with the goal to whether they go to college or a trade school or go straight to a job. I believe the elementary school does a really good job in regards to teaching to the whole child. It is a board goal. I do think that once middle school and high school comes, though, that kind of goes out the window. It would be really nice for those 6th to 12th graders to maybe get an individual plan. I mean, there's an IEP and there's 504s, but if you're not in that category, they do not, take you aside and say, how do you want to be taught? Do you want to be taught this way? That doesn't happen. I would really love to see that because especially now, I think that would set them up for success to move forward in their lives. Thank you.
Jen.
To set students up for success, you have to do it through personalized learning, which is the #1 board goal. That means you meet the learner where they're at. You provide them with reading, writing, multi-tier systems of support that are applicable to that individual learner and help propel them to the next level of excellence. Again, it requires that the specific learner's needs are being met. What's interesting is if you look at our test scores from the last 4 years before COVID, our literacy trends have gone up anywhere from 4 to 11%. Our math trends for the same period have gone up 9%. And our overall testing data has gone between 10 to 15%, which means we are 10 to 15% higher than Redondo Beach, El Segundo, Palos Verdes, and Torrance. We do that through personalized learning. Recent test scores from California are being released, and we hope to have them in our October board meeting. But again, by continuing to hone in on that individual learner and their specific needs, that's how you gear your students up for academic success.
Tina.
Yeah, I see this as a two-pronged strategy to set up our students for success. #1, every student needs to feel connected to this campus or to whatever campus they're on, as well as be able to access academics and or electives related to their passion, whether it's through a club or, like I said, or an elective. If they are connected, we know studies show if they are connected to this campus, they will thrive. And we need to see our students thriving, not just surviving. And we know that when our students are thriving and they feel the sense of belonging on campus, that it opens up new doors and windows for them. I will challenge the hate and the bullying programs. I'm one of the founders of some of the programs at Penny Camp, and we spent $0 to like $300 on our budget through PTA. We had no funding. We did it organically, like I said, through PTA, and we've had amazing success at the elementary levels. And we know that we haven't tackled it yet at the middle school and the high school, but we're getting there. The second way I think we can ensure success is through mastery of learning. One of the things that we were looking at when my son was in 8th grade was to consider moving over to Da Vinci, which is next door in the next school district. And one of the things that they tout is mastery of subject. And that's something that we are starting to see in our classrooms. We want to see more of it. We're actually doing some pilots with science.
10 seconds.
And that allows our students to achieve maybe a 70 or an 80 on their first test, but they have the opportunity to go back and learn and master that chapter or master that material before they move on. We want them to master.
John?
Thanks. I've coached soccer, basketball, football, volleyball, everything. I stole a lot of my coaching stuff from a guy by the name of John Wooden. He taught the 10 steps you need to be great without a ball. I'll read them quickly.
Lean towards the microphone. Lean towards the microphone.
God damn. Hard work, friendship, loyalty, cooperation, enthusiasm, determination, action, alertness, self-control, fitness, skill, team spirit, confidence, and poise. I believe that we need to blend the academics, the extracurricular activities, not just sports, music, theater, dance, the social events, and the clubs. I know because I interview a number of students that are leaving college to set them up for their job interviews. And we aren't doing a good job right now, okay? Many of them come into me, in my opinion, to be entitled. So I believe going back to number one, John Wooden's thing is hard work. Let's give these guys a chance to set themselves up so they can succeed, whether they're going to college, trade school, or choose basically just go back into the workforce and support that. That's it.
Wysh.
So I was a teacher for almost a decade. And just like teachers provide clear expectations and high standards for their students, we should be doing the same for our teachers, which will inevitably set our students up for success as well. The short and long-term goals should be clear. Students should also feel safe on campus and that they have a trusted adult that they can connect with, whether it's a teacher or another staff member. They must feel that they are part of the community. And this was mentioned by another candidate. All of that covers the basics and sets them up for success. Then you have to get into the academics, which we have never stopped teaching the basics. The professional learning communities that another candidate mentioned, I'll dive into that a little bit. There's something called win time. It's called What I Need. And students either go see a reading specialist or a math specialist, or they participate in a writer's workshop time, or they might work in a small group, or they might just, do something independently. But it's basically what I need for that day. And at the elementary level right now, it's required 4 times a week. There's also something called multiple tier system of support, MTSS, which another candidate touched on. And if you've been to some of the board meetings, you've probably heard Katrina O'Connor talk about this. She also shared at a recent PTA meeting on Tuesday at Pacific about it. And there's 3 tiers. And so there's tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And so tier 1 is probably a child that's
10 seconds.
Performing well, and then it goes up from there. And there's different levels of scaffolding to reach the kids where they are.
Mike?
I think I started.
Sorry. I didn't read my notes right. We're going to go do question number 3 to Cristy. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Number 3, Cristy, what do you believe will be the greatest challenge to the district in the next 4 years and why?
I believe the biggest challenge that's going to be for the district in the next couple of years is really getting the enrollment back. I think families are upset. I think that there's a lot of things that are happening in the classroom right now, and they aren't feeling like they're being heard. I know that other candidates are saying this, but this has been going on for a very long time, that they don't feel like they're being heard. We need a board that's going to go in and be compassionate and hear them and listen to them and really get the enrollment numbers up. I think we need to start following California Ed Code, and so parents feel comfortable in coming back. I think that would help. I think that's going to be the biggest one. We don't know. We need to... no, that's what I'm saying. I believe that it's going to be really getting our enrollment up and listening to the parents and making them feel comfortable that the district is amazing like it is. Thank you.
Jen?
Uncertain funding and enrollment are your easy go-tos, but when you take a deeper dive, the real challenge that this district will face will be staffing and how we navigate that in the future. Budget and enrollment drive our revenue stream. That's how we compensate our employees. That's how we retain our employees. That's also how we recruit our employees. Staffing also correlates to the number of students we have in each class and how we maintain smaller class sizes. Let's not forget that 83% of the MBUSD budget goes to people. So when the district rolls off one-time funding and we are relying exclusively on the base grant, which we receive 30 to 40% less than other districts based on supplemental and categorical money that MBUSD does not get, we are going to have a hard time competing for staffing. It is already a limited pool. I'd like to focus on recruiting efforts. I'd like to be creative. I'd like to ensure that exit surveys are not only being taken, but they're being read. I'd also like to look at sub rates. We've raised them in the past. Perhaps we do it again. And I'd like to get creative with our subcontractors and consider that a way to deal with our staffing shortage in the future.
Tina?
Yeah. So I want to expand on Jen's comments. I also feel that we have a staffing dilemma that we need to tackle, and this is specifically related to our counselors. So we know 10 years ago, those students, we have about 16% of our students in with IEPs, and those students, and a certain percentage of them need mental health services. And 10 years ago, that was 25%. Fast forward to now, we have about 50% of those students 50% of the IEP students that need mental health services. Our current counseling staff cannot service the kids in a timely manner and fast enough. Plus, we have more students knocking on the door saying, I think I need help. I think I need the services that these other students have. And we can't even forget about the students that are not on an IEP. We have students today, our 4.0s, our 4.6s, our 4.7s. They are also experiencing anxiety and stress. They're up till 2 o'clock in the morning. We know that. I know that because I've had a high school student for the last 4 years, and I currently have a 9th grader. And those kids are not able to get access to their current academic counselors. So we have benefited from Beach City's Health District, where they've provided us with some counselors, but it's still not enough. We know that our kids need these healthy avenues and healthy adults in the room and access to these adults. So if we
10 seconds.
If we can make sure that those are part of our priority when we're dealing with headcount and in our district, I think we need to look very close at those types of staff members. Thank you.
John?
I think our greatest challenge going forward is going to be credibility with the public, parents, and maybe the students. We talked about Measure A and how we looked at the financial budget and realized we had a surplus on that part of the budget. And yet the PTA, the board, the Ed Foundation all went around telling people they didn't like the schools if they didn't vote for that particular budget. Well, come to there, you now look at Amy, what's Amy's last name? Holworth, I think, on Tuesday night, basically saying the same thing. You know, she supported Measure A as a consultant or whatever, but she brought everyone together and realized there was only 3 board members, so 3 council members running that didn't support Measure A. But it wasn't so much the support or non-support of it, it was the negative, as many people have mentioned here, about how you not liking the schools or when you support the schools if you didn't want to swallow their medicine. So credibility is going to be huge. If we have to go back to the public for a bond, which I believe we probably need, I don't know for sure, but I probably guess that, for 2 reasons. 1, to help the facilities, but 2, that's an incredible revenue for the stream for the school, where we don't need to keep going back to the public going forward. And therefore, I can go, I think, much easier
10 seconds.
with Mike Welsh, Cristy Barnes, and myself to the public, knowing that we have a fresh start and we're willing to go forward. Thank you.
So I touched
Wysh?
on this. So I touched on this on the first question. Regardless of who is elected up here, we are going to have to bring people back together and working productively and having productive, constructive conversations. A healthy board should have different perspectives and different professional backgrounds. Over these last several years and 6 months, I have often sat down at coffee with people who do not see everything the way that I do, nor should they. I'm a person who is willing to go out of my way to find common ground with people. And I think it's going to be a key ingredient in the success of the next 4 years. And the reason that I bring that up is because think about yourself 4 years ago, the fall of 2018. Life looked pretty darn good. Think about all of the things that have happened over the last 4 years that we did not see coming. I imagine that none of us up here have any idea what we're actually going to face in the boardroom. And that's okay, but you want to choose people that are willing to rise to the challenge and be able to ride the wave and be able to be flexible and figure it out as we go and work together to solve the problems.
Mike?
Getting the 1,000 students that have left the district over the last 7 years is definitely something that we need to do, to ensure our fiscal house is in order. That represents about $12 million in lost annual revenue on a $93 million budget. But something that's just as important and is a national crisis right now is that, according to the National Educational Association, in a survey they did in March, over 55% of teachers are considering leaving the profession much sooner than they had intended. So, these people are the lifeblood, the very foundation of our educational system. Without them, folks, we've got nothing. So we need to address those concerns head on. These are the people that we entrust our most precious possessions to, our children. And if they're not happy, we have to spend the time to figure out why. We need to embrace them in the district and include them in the decisions we make. They're on the front line. They know what programs
10
work
seconds.
and what doesn't work. And including them in the budget might be a great way to save some money, eliminating, redirecting money into other things, and maybe even getting them raises. So it's an issue.
All right, on to question 4 for Jen. Jen, should there be changes to the district's process for listening to parents' concerns about schools, the curriculum, or teacher behavior in the classroom?
Improving communication is something that all of the candidates can agree upon. I think it's paramount to hear from the board. As Wysh mentioned, those one-on-one meetings with friendlies and what we also call unfriendlies is paramount to that process. You need to hear the other side. You need to be able to have that conversation and walk away knowing what the other party feels. I think follow-up phone calls, public comments, these are all great ways for the public to be heard. In terms of improving accountability, we have a new superintendent of HR. His name is Dr. Tom Steckel. And accountability is a huge focus. Dr. Steckel takes all complaints and allegations very seriously. These are against students, these are against teachers, these are against coaches. Long gone are the days where complaints are being swept under the rug. Dr. Steckel, as well as Dr. Bose, are reworking the complaint process. We are moving towards a consolidated complaint form that will be launched on the website immediately, where students and staff should no longer feel that they can't come forward to report an incident because retaliation is not allowed. Just like the legal system, we need people to come forward and we need people in our community to come forward, but the district is trying to make it better and we are trying to deal with bad apples. And
10 seconds.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Should there be changes to the district's process for listening to parent concerns about our schools, the curriculum, or teacher behavior in the classroom? Go.
Yeah, I can speak to an example directly that I had with my family. So my son was treated, in a way that wasn't acceptable to myself and my family. And so I was able to reach out to the principal and I requested an in-person meeting with the teacher so that I could hear both sides. I think that's the most important thing is you need to hear both sides. I don't want to just side with my kid. I need to hear what the teacher had to say as well, what was happening in that classroom. And I think when you and what was happening 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before, what happened 10 minutes after. There's always more to the story, the one sentence story that you hear that something went wrong in the classroom. So I think we need to make sure that, we get all parties' information correct. And then you can, decide what's the best move for the student or for the teacher. I am excited that we are seeing an improvement in all of our schools as far as communication is concerned. I know that when it comes to questions on curriculum, that we have access to the Google Classrooms. We always have if you ask your own child for their Google Classroom. But the teachers at Back to School Night said, any parent that wants access to the Google Classroom, you need to give me your email and you will be automatically added. So I think that the communication
10 seconds.
is opening. And I think there's also a new tool that we have launched this year. It was something that I recommended after seeing it in Redondo Union, the Sprago tool, which will allow anonymous or named families to report any communication of problems. Thank you.
John?
Yeah. I have been a soccer commissioner, coach, referee, not to mention a bunch of other sports like that. So dealing with controversy and a process is what I've done for the community in my last 14, 15 years. My opinion is the current board and PTA are allowing things like Jason Boxer to continue his, I guess the nicest word to say is antics. I mean, even as recently as yesterday, he took down his racist posts. But if you look and you click on the button, it's still the MBUSD email address. Nothing's been done. Again, going back to credibility, you can't solve problems if parents aren't going to step forward if they don't think they're going to be heard and something's going to happen. We actually had to have 2 rabbis come to the school board meeting after 2 years of this. And now he finally took a few of them down, but didn't change anything. So complacency is not going to work. We've tried this thing for 4 years. I believe we need change in people, not just policy.
Wysh?
So I touched on this a little bit before, but the boardroom has mostly been this space that has been the most contentious. I've been going to board meetings long before it was popular to go to board meetings, and they used to be a lot more comfortable and a lot more comfortable. And so I do think that we should be really utilizing this board workshops option because, the last several board workshops have been mostly presentation for a significant amount of time. And then there's a dialogue where one person gets to speak at a time. That's really not conducive to bringing people's anxiety down and having a safe space for them to share. So whatever and the board workshops are usually based on whatever is the most pressing issue at that time for the school. I also think just having most things back in person. Just recently, we all had back to school night in person with our teachers in their classrooms. When you meet somebody in person, you are just so much more engaged and know them so much better than if you do meet them only over a Zoom ever. And so I think that having more in-person activities this year will help as well. I also think it's important for people to understand if you email all 5 board members, they cannot hit reply all because of the Brown Act. So a lot of parents feel like, oh, they didn't even respond to my email. Typically, the board president will respond on behalf of the board, but parents need to understand that the other ones are still reading it, but they're not allowed to respond.
Mike?
Do we need a change to the system? Absolutely. Even if the school district isn't reaching out to parents, I'm reaching out to people who have left the district, and this is their number one complaint, that they are not getting heard. And you just can't do that to your customers. Let me give you some extreme examples of how we treat our parents. The people who are ignored are the lucky ones. The unlucky ones are the 3 people, 3 of our residents, 3 of our neighbors who receive cease and desist letters in a meeting, or not in a meeting, they receive cease and desist letters for speaking up against the board's actions and their leadership. This was paid for with taxpayers' dollars, okay? Now, I can assure you, if you are unhappy with something in the school, you will not get a cease and desist letter. You will get a meeting with me. I heard an incident today that I got a call from a parent, and it's just troubling to me. Her 13-year-old son was being picked on. Kid was, and this has been going on for a little while, the kid's being poked with a pencil. And actually,
10 seconds.
It wasn't her son. She was driving the son home. The point is, the kid went to see a counselor, and the counselor told him, you fill out a report. The parent wasn't involved at all. She asked for the child to fill out a report. Wrong.
Time. Cristy.
Hi. Can you hear me? I am Cristy Barnes, and this is exactly why I am here. There definitely needs to have a change. My son goes every single day to class, and his teachers talk to him about politics, who they vote for, who they don't vote for, every single day. My son emailed the counselor. He went into the counselor and said, please move me from this class. I am uncomfortable. Those are the words he used. She would not move him. I called her. She said, you know what? You need to talk to the head of the department. That was just this year. Last year, in regards to curriculum change, every day he would go into class and the curriculum was not following, maybe following standards. I emailed that teacher every single day. You know what? I got my son moved, but not because they wanted to talk about the issues. They didn't even want to listen to the complaints I had. The counselors called me and they moved my son. This is not acceptable. We need a change. Our teachers are reviewed every 5 years. If I were working for a company and I got a review every 5 years, I'd be really upset. Especially, do you want raises? I'm not even going to go into that. If Tom Sokol's our guy, great. If not, we need an ombudsman that will take all those complaints and really listen to them. This
10
is
seconds.
serious. Our kids do not feel safe coming into our campus, knowing that if they speak up, there will be retribution to their grades. And this is about their careers. This is their college. Thank you.
Please don't applaud. Thank you. Our next question, number 5, is going to go to Tina. Tina, what is your position on teachers' unions, and how would you negotiate with the unions?
I did a little bit of research on this. This was something that I didn't know much about, given the information, or given the hours of volunteering that I've spent over the last 12 years. So I did my homework, and what I understand from talking to cabinet is that the role of cabinet is the role of cabinet to work with our union. And before that, it's the role of the governing board, the board of trustees, to define the overall parameters for them to work within. And so once the governing board defines the parameters, whether it's something relating to a number for salaries or something relating to their contract, again, the governing board decides the overall parameters. Then the cabinet will go back to the union, and they will be meeting with them 1, 2, 3, 100 times before that final contract has been agreed to. And during those 100 times, they have to be checking back in with cabinet and maybe renegotiating those parameters. So that is my understanding after doing my research and homework on what our role is in working with the union.
John?
I got a chance to meet with a gentleman by the name of Michael Bloomberg last week, and it was very interesting. East Coast, West Coast, Yankees, Dodgers. Before the meeting, you would think that there's no way either of us could agree on about anything. We talked about schools, and he said, I hate teachers' unions. I said, well, I don't know much about it, but I know I don't have $1.5 billion like you do to start a charter system here in Manhattan Beach. So we laughed. He said, yeah, I know, you got to learn to work with them. So I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. I try not to pass judgment on how somebody acted before or anything. Just try to meet them straight up, and we find out, hey, what are you looking for? What are we looking for? Is it the same thing? I will tell you, after that meeting with Michael Bloomberg, I was shocked how much we all have in common.
Wysh?
So Tina alluded to this a little bit. I'll just explain a little bit more. So board members do not sit at the negotiating table. That should be clear. In a closed session, they are allowed to draw the parameters for percentages, goals, and the missions of negotiating, but the board members do not do the actual negotiation. We also have two separate unions. So we have a certificated teachers union, and then we have a classified staff. So that's your cafeteria workers, your maintenance staff, the office staff, basically every other adult on campus minus the principals and cabinet. So all of these people together they run the day-to-day. We need them. We need to support them. They are the backbone of our schools. I am sure everyone here can quickly recall their favorite teacher growing up. I am sure our parents can all name their child's favorite teacher. I'm sure our kids can as well. The level of positive impact our staff can have on our students is exponential. The day before my first day of teaching, my superintendent at the time gave a speech to all of the teachers across the district, and he said, "Make a difference every day." I have lived by these words since I heard them on that day. Every teacher has a story about what inspired them to start teaching. Perhaps we need to remind them of some of them.
10 seconds.
At this at times, but I promise you, they each have a story to tell. Ask them what it is, so they can make a difference every day.
Mike?
I can work with anyone. I know nationally there's been some troubling things in the news as far as over COVID from some of the teachers' unions, some of them nationally, some of them locally. But I can work with anyone as long as I'm sure that they're focused on doing what's right for our children. We had a little meet and greet recently, and Sean Chen showed up, and she's the head of the teachers union here and one of the teachers. And I reached out to her because I want to learn more about this, and what her feelings are and what her thoughts are, and what problems does she see? Because like I said, these people are heroes. We need to make sure they're happy. She said she could meet me next month, or starting sometime in October. So I plan on getting together with her. But like I said, I know I can reach an agreement with anybody, and I'm not saying I'm not coming from a prejudicial place.
10 seconds.
But one thing I will insist upon is that, as Cristy was saying, that teachers leave their politics out of the classroom. So if we can agree on that, we'll be fine, I'm sure, on everything else.
Cristy?
Question again, please.
Sure.
Thanks.
What is your position on teachers' unions, and how would you negotiate with the unions?
Hi, good afternoon or evening. I'm Cristy Barnes, and I do not know the role in regards to the unions play with the board. What I did do, though, however, is we met with Dr. Bose. I think all of the candidates did about a month ago. We had about 20 minutes. And one of the questions that I asked him, I said, "Are you familiar with negotiating with unions?" And he very confidently said yes. At one time, he worked for LAUSD and had to negotiate 5 different unions at the same time. And then he was very comfortable. So I don't know everything, but I know that he would be a great person to speak with and work with together to negotiate with them if that is the board role. And again, I will put myself into any research that needs to be done in regards to the unions.